true believers. This is Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and with me tonight is a woman that is hoping the second time is the charm when it comes to snagging championship gold. In November, she fell short to Felicia Spencer in her first attempt to become the Invicta FC Featherweight champion. With Spencer now in the UFC roster, she will again have a chance to earn the title at Invicta FC 36 on August 9th, and that two-time contender is Pam Sorenson. Pam, thank you for giving me some time tonight before your upcoming main event title fight in just a few days.
All right. No, thank you for having me.
Now, this is your second attempt at the Invicta Featherweight title, like I just mentioned. After missing out against Spencer last year, title opportunities don't, come around all the time. First, are you feeling fortunate to get a second chance at the crown so quickly, which is unusual and very lucky in a way? And two, is there an added pressure to make this second chance count? Because it doesn't come around all the time.
I mean, there is and there isn't. I had a lot of stuff going on around the time of my last fight. A lot of stuff has happened since then. I had a major surgery, and so this fight, it's important in a different way. It's not just about winning the title. It's kind of like overcoming everything that I went through and still being able to fight after everything.
Can you talk about that surgery that's kept you out? You haven't been able to fight since that Spencer fight, which has only been 9 months. Are you able to talk about that? What happened? What kept you out of the cage for so long?
Yeah. So I was experiencing some lower abdominal pain for, on and off for well over a year. Ended up going to the emergency room thinking I had appendicitis. It was maybe a couple weeks after I fought Felicia, and it turned out I had a really large ovarian cyst.
Wow.
So I think it was like 4 days after I went to the ER, I was having surgery to have it removed. And it turned out it was like 3.5 pounds.
Wow.
So it was big, and they had to make a big incision like straight through the abdominals. So it was not a fun surgery, but it was necessary. I got offered a fight back in either May or June, and I wasn't able to take it. I just wasn't ready yet. And then when I got the call asking about August, I was like, yeah, I think we're ready. Like, let's do it. So.
When you originally found out what the real thing was, you needed surgery and everything, what did the doctor say in terms of, like, was it expected to be a long recovery? Was it anything that would put your career in danger or anything like that?
Well, I had known a couple of other fighters who had not the same surgery, but similarly they had abdominal surgery, and a couple of them had been told not to fight anymore.
Wow. Any reason why they were told that?
Well, especially when they cut through your belly button.
Yeah.
There's cutting through a lot of ligaments, cutting through all the muscle and the fascia, and I guess, especially when they cut through your belly button, there's an additional risk of like an incisional hernia, which doesn't sound pleasant. But I was very fortunate that the surgeon I had, she knew that it was important to me that I kept fighting. She knew how much it meant to me, and she did everything that she could to make sure that it was going to be a possibility. And I know originally they were thinking, 6 to 8 weeks to start doing light training again, and it might be a year and a half to get back in the cage.
Wow.
And so yeah, I feel like I was very lucky. Like, it was a rough recovery, but I think others have had it worse.
And you said a year and a half. That's so you're well ahead of schedule. Had the doctors already looked you over? Okay, wow, this is fantastic. You're on schedule. You're not pushing it at all.
Yep. No, they cleared me, and I think they're happy with where I was. And she was like, all right, like, go for it.
All right. Now, this will also be your second straight headlining fight. Did being in the headlining role come as a big change for you the last time? Were there more media demands, like from people like me? Was your rhythm off a bit, having to fight at the end of the night instead of early? Because I've talked to a lot of fighters that, hate that and have to wait all the time. They like to get their fight out of the way. Did any of those things affect you the first time being in that main event role?
Not really. I had experienced it not in Invicta before, but I experienced it in the other promotion I had fought for. At least waiting till the end. So you see, people come back. Half of the people there are going to lose their fights. They come back, they're crying, maybe they're bleeding. Some of them are hurt. I've kind of been there, done that before, but the additional kind of media stuff, it starts to add up after a while, but also you get used to it.
Do you feel better? So this time around, it's not been a big deal. It's like old hat. I've been here before. This is no different.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's talk about your opponent on August 9th, Kaitlin Young, who I was told actually is a friend of yours. You know, she is a veteran as it gets in this sport. You know, her 10-9-1 record may not impress, but she has fought a bunch of talented fighters during her career. Gina Carano, Julie Kedzie, Misha Tate, Leslie Smith, Liz Carmouche is about to fight for a championship coming up. Lauren Murphy, another UFC fighter. You know, she's been in the sport 12 years, but actually is the same age as you, so she's been in the sport a very, very long time. Because of her experience against high-level fighters, like I just mentioned, do you view her as one of the very toughest tests of your career?
Absolutely. I mean, I've watched Kaitlin since before I started fighting. I mean, she was, you know, when it was a possibility, and you Google like women's MMA fights, and her fights popped up, but it was so cool. She was from around here. She was a Minnesota girl. She lived like 15 minutes away from me, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. There's a girl who lives like right down the road who does this. So I've looked up to her for a long time. When she took a break from MMA, she had a lot of Muay Thai fights, and I was able to go to and even fight on the same card as her a couple of times. But yeah, her record is very deceiving. I mean, some people would look at it and say, well, why are you giving a girl who's barely 50 a title shot? But I mean, she's been fighting for so long. I mean, if you think about when she started, there really was no women's divisions. It was like, take the fights that are offered, whether they're good fights or bad fights, whether you're ready for them. Like when she fought Gina Carano, I think she just wasn't ready because she was so early in her career. So her record's very deceiving. She's much better and a much more dangerous opponent than her record would imply.
And you mentioned, you know, she's from the area you're from. You watched her, like a lot of fighters like that came into the sport your time, like looking up to her and admiring her. Is there any weirdness in that you're fighting her? Do you fear at all the possibility of getting in the cage, like, oh, wow, fighting Kaitlin Young? This is kind of weird. I was just, I was looking. Is any fears of that, or no? When that cage door closes, she's in trouble.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because I think it was who just fought? Max Holloway had actually said, like, train until your kind of like your idols become your opponent. Right. That's kind of what I did. So it's kind of cool that somebody who I looked up to for so many years, and never at the time when I was an amateur, or even before I'd started fighting, I never would have thought that I'd be stepping in the cage with her, and now I am. So it's not scary. It's just
I noticed an interesting anomaly in that half of your professional fights have ended in split decisions. 3 wins, 2 losses for you. Do you chalk something like that up to just the oddness of the sport? Is it questionable judging in the sport on various levels? And because of something like that, so many close calls, was there ever time in your training that you adjusted a little and like, oh, I got to push to be more of a finisher? I'm having these close calls. This is weird. It's going to put my career and trajectory in danger. Anything like that?
Yeah, we've been working a lot lately on, fixing some stuff on the ground, maybe looking for more finishes rather than just controlling, because, you never know with how the judges are going to go. I've been on, the good side of a close split decision, and I've been on the bad side of like another one. So, we're definitely making corrections to kind of go for the finish instead of trying to play it safe and trying to outpoint somebody.
Is there any additions to your training for this camp, or anything unique, any training with anybody specific, or anything special for Kaitlin? Anything you're bringing to the table for her, wealth of experience, or are you confident what you have now at where you're training at now should be enough to get it done against her on August 9th?
I'm confident in the coaches and training partners I have. However, I have been lucky enough where Cowboy Cerrone's wrestling coach is actually from around here, and so he was back for the summer, and so he's been working with me a lot on things specific for this fight, both on the stand up and on the ground and against the cage. yeah, we have a few new tricks up our sleeves just for Kaitlin.
Interesting. What is there something about his teaching style that's different, or is it just simply a different look, different kind of way of thinking on wrestling that it brings something refreshing for this camp against her?
He just has a very different style than I'm used to, and it's really, he has a lot of quick fixes that are, it's just like, oh man, this is so much easier. It takes so much less energy, and it's so efficient. Yeah. He's been doing it for so long, and coaching at such a high level that, he coaches wrestling anywhere from kids up to, people who are high level UFC fighters. So like, he knows how to explain, like if I'm sitting there giving him the deer in the headlights look, he could explain something 4 or 5 different ways until like, all right, how can I explain it so this idiot can understand what I'm saying?
Is it the type of thing where you're like, damn it, where the fuck was this guy 3 or 4 years ago? Is it that kind of like awakening in a way from wrestling coaching?
Yeah, and there were certain things, it's like as a white belt in jiu-jitsu, when you realize when you open somebody's guard, like, I don't have to walk right back in. It's like, when you realize it, it's like, oh, like, that's good. So we've had a few of those moments.
Right. For most, a championship win in Invicta means a run in the UFC is likely coming. It's almost, a rite of passage, it seems like, in certain ways. Of course, most fighters on this side of the planet, in the Western world, dream of, fighting the UFC one day. It's just something, it's a part of things. It's part of being MMA in this side of the world. Is part of winning the featherweight title for you knowing this could guarantee a chance in the UFC? Or is that kind of more like icing? That's kind of a background thing. And more for you, you are genuinely excited to add your name to the record books as an Invicta featherweight champion.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to fight in the UFC. I would love to hopefully one day get that call. Hopefully get that call after this fight. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy with Invicta. I like the way that they treated me and they treat their other fighters. If for whatever reason the UFC hasn't really pulled the trigger on building this division yet, otherwise Kaitlin and I would probably be fighting in the UFC. Yeah. We wouldn't be fighting in Invicta. So if they're not interested, they're not interested. So at this point, it kind of be icing on the cake. Of course, I want it to happen, but I'm not going to beat myself up if it doesn't.
Is there a part of you, because you just mentioned that Invicta and Trish treated you well and stuff like that, is there a part of you that on a loyalty level would like to at least maybe defend the title once? Or if that call comes, and it seems when an Invicta featherweight champion happens, they get the call really quick. If that call comes, it's something you can't pass up on, even for one featherweight title defense in Invicta.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna, if the call comes, I'm not gonna turn it down. But that it would be nice to, I mean, poor Invicta has had a history. He's crowned a champion, they crown one, and then they lose them. So, yeah, it would be kind of nice to see some people sticking around and defending their belts, so the featherweight belt included. But, I mean, Invicta's also very great about truly building up their athletes and letting them move when the call comes.
What do you think about the UFC's featherweight division? Because it's a weird situation because it's a division that maybe doesn't have quite the depth of other ones, like say featherweight. I mean, not featherweight, flyweight or bantamweight in the sport. I mean, it's still developing, still coming on. But now you have Cyborg. She may be leaving. She may be headed to another organization based on unhappiness with the UFC. Invicta keeps losing people. Felicia just left. You may very well have to leave if you get the offer and you win a title. Is there part of you that instead of wishing it wasn't so split up, that would you just like everybody to be Invicta and then fight Invicta, or would you just like Invicta's all featherweight just to go to UFC and get it over with? Is there kind of a frustration that the depth of this weight class kind of just keeps getting split by the UFC just picking every top Invicta fighter every time?
Oops, sorry. Yeah, it is. And then also with the UFC dragging their feet, because Invicta is very good about letting their fighters go. Bellator, however, is not. And Bellator picked up quite a few featherweight fighters, and so when the UFC wants to say this isn't a very deep division, well, it is, but you keep letting Bellator snap them up. Invicta, you can pick people out of Invicta, but Bellator is not so willing to let their fighters go. So,
what do you think of the Bellator featherweight division? Do you feel it's on the level of the UFC's? I mean, Cyborg recently went public, saying she felt that it was as strong as the UFC. Do you feel Bellator, outside of Julia Budd, has a good featherweight division on its own too?
Yeah, they definitely have some talent there. I forget people's names, but Olga Rubin, Cindy, I think she just had a one-off fight with them, but I know she wants to fight more for them. Yeah, they have some talent there. But I don't know. I like Invicta's slightly biased, but
speaking of, we were talking about Felicia. I don't know if you watched the fight with her and Cyborg. What did you think of her performance? I mean, you fought her. You had a tough fight with her. You very well could fight her again. How'd you think she looked against a legendary fighter like Cyborg that so many people revere as one of the best female fighters of all time?
She's a lot tougher than people give her credit for, and I think she definitely went out there and proved it. Yeah, I don't know. I thought she did really great. When you looked at the odds, it looked like people thought that Cyborg would end her, and she didn't. She stuck in there. She got her own shots in, and she's the first person to ever cut Cyborg. So, yeah, I don't know. I was happy for her. She did a great job. She might not have gotten the win, but I mean, she definitely made a lot of new fans.
I mean, speaking of that, there's Megan Anderson, and we were talking in this, idea of fighters going from Invicta to the UFC all the time, and seeing someone like her do very well against one of the very best. Does that give you like almost a feeling of pride and almost like prestige that, let's say you do win this title or you don't win, either way, it could be argued maybe that the Invicta featherweight division is the best, considering that the UFC keeps taking from them. They have these champions, all these fighters that have been going from Invicta to the UFC seem to do very well and are the heart of the division. Is that part of almost the enjoyment of this opportunity? You are really getting a title that has some legitimate serious prestige as one of the elites, maybe even more elite than the UFC's women's featherweight title. Because Cyborg is a former Invicta champion too.
I mean, a lot of times they just bring 35ers up and call them featherweights. Whereas we actually have a division of people who are truly meant to be at 145.
Now, I always like to end the interviews, just learning a little bit more about the fighters, away from fighting. And so fans and people that watch it can learn a little bit more about them. So what's something that you're into that has nothing to do with fighting, that's a real personal passion of yours, that you really enjoy, that's really super fun, that some people would be really surprised? Like, are you into, maybe rollerblading, or you maybe a hockey, or what is something that really would surprise people? Like, what? Bam? Pam Bam is into that? I didn't expect that.
One thing that won't surprise people, I love my dogs. I have 3 of them, but most of my fans at least know that. I like to knit.
Really?
Yeah. So I've gotten into knitting, and especially after surgery and stuff, I was knitting make like hats or whatnot, or blankets.
Do you have a collection that you can maybe show people? Is there like a wall adorned with your knitting work that you have on display?
I don't here. I back at home, but I have a closet full of hats, and my dog has a kennel full of little blankets.
So should relatives of you already know, like, oh, Pam's gonna knit me a sweater this year, you're looking forward to it? Has it gone to that level yet?
Yeah, no, they
Is there a favorite one that when you finish, you're like, damn, this is good, I want to keep it for myself, but you still gave it as a gift?
There's actually a baby hat that I made for my coach last winter that I was playing with, different, trying to make little patterns and stuff, and I was like, oh, this one's really cute, but one, it's not gonna fit my big old head. It's made for